Welcome to this episode of The Wolf and the Shepherd. Today we have with us Nick Landholdt. Nick, glad you could join us.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about libertarianism and my candidacy for governor of Texas.
Well, welcome, Nick. First question I wanted to ask you is if you could explain what a libertarian is, because we actually have quite a big dyslexic fan base, and they're convinced it's somebody who works in a library. So if you can just explain, to our listeners really, what libertarianism is, because I know I'm a bit, shaky if I had to give somebody a definition really on what it means. So.
Well, I'm probably as shaky as you are. I would give my definition, which is basically, I'll backtrack a little bit. When I ran for Congress in 2016, I approached the Libertarian Party here in Texas with the fact that they had ballot access. So that was big. Because I'm probably more suited for the Constitution Party, or actually there's a Christian Party of Texas. And I told the Desiree Lindsay at the time, she was the candidate coordinator for the Libertarian Party of Texas, LP Texas for short, that I said, hey, I'm a Christian constitutionalist. I'm against open borders, because in Texas, that's a death knell if you're pro open borders. I said I'm for secure borders, but I'm not, for letting everybody and their grandmother into the country of Texas, because I'm actually pro Texit. I'm pro secession, and that's what my gubernatorial campaign is going to bring out. And I said, and I'm also pro-life, I'm pro-family. So I'm against abortion. I think abortion is murder. And she said, well, we're actually more conservative than the National Libertarian Party, and we kind of let our candidates have their own positions on social issues. And I said, well, okay, fine. I just want to make sure that up front, what I'm about. So I filed by the deadline, and I had no opposition. And again, this is 2016. And so I was the nominee for the party, LP Texas, for running in the Congressional District 11, which was at the time run by a rhino globalist Republican, Mike Conaway. And I really did not have any I ran no campaign virtually. I didn't even open up a bank account. But just the fact that my name was on the ballot, and we did not have a Democrat running that particular year, just by having my name on the ballot, I got officially, I got over 23,000 votes from the district. And in West Texas, 5 districts cover almost half of Texas, the western half. And the Libertarian Party of Texas received over 80,000 votes from the other 4 candidates and myself that ran for U.S. House. And I thought, hey, man, there's a foundation out there for libertarianism in West Texas. And so I said, hey, party, why aren't you, doing anything about this? And I basically got crickets. Well, my definition, I guess, for libertarianism is that I do believe in the non-aggression principle. There seems to be some kind of a disconnect within the party itself as to whether NAP is, should be the criteria or not. But yeah, I'm against being the aggressor, but I also believe in self-defense. And the police state that we started, that started in 1903 here in America. They've been the aggressor for decades, over a century now. A case can be made that, the police state started after the Civil War, but be that as it may, 1903 was, I consider to be the official beginning of the police state, because that is when Congress, the traitors and cowards in Congress, and they've continued it up till today, passed what's called the Dick Act of 1903. And basically what it was it made state militias superfluous. They suppressed state militias, and they eventually brought in the National Guard, which is federalized. So they made the militia in the states what they call unorganized militia, which is an oxymoron if I ever heard one. And they did this, they meaning the money powers, they knew what their plan was, which was eventually to become the Federal Reserve. They were wanting to bring back the centralized states, or the centralized banking system, which Andrew Jackson had successfully gotten rid of. Of course, Abraham Lincoln tried to do the same thing. We know what happened to him. JFK, after 1913, tried to do the same thing, and we know what happened to him. But in 1903, the bankers knew that they needed to get rid of the organized, well-regulated militia that the Second Amendment calls for. And so 10 years before 1913, they passed this Dick Act. And then in 1913, we got the Federal Reserve Act, which gave them, Congress basically abdicated their duty, their constitutional duty, to create the money. And so, and then of course, 1913 was also the year that the 16th Amendment was supposedly ratified, but the evidence shows that the 16th Amendment, which basically supposedly gives us the income tax, was not legally ratified. And I'll get into the whole IRS thing a little bit later. But libertarianism is, basically, don't take the things of others, don't steal, don't be aggressing against people, to whether it's physically or through monetary means, to take people's things. And I would personally add, following the 10 Commandments and the Golden Rule, do unto others as they would have do unto you. And that's kind of that in a long nutshell.
Well, Nick, could you explain what you mean by police state? Do you mean that police either don't adhere to the law, or they kind of interpret it on an individual basis, and therefore kind of maybe make themselves immune to the consequences of their actions? What exactly do you mean by police state?
Well, I think we can see it today, but it's basically we the people. The Constitution starts out, we the people. We the people are supposed to be policing ourselves. And what happened in 1903 is they took that away from us. So local police are actually, or a case can be made that they are unconstitutional. What happened was the rich folks, because state militia is a statutory type situation. So, whatever age the state, I guess, determines, it's a compulsory duty to defend the state against aggressors. And the Constitution says there are 3 duties that constitutional militia have, and that's to execute the laws of the Union, to repel invasions, and to suppress insurrections. Those are the 3 main duties. And so the wealthy eventually didn't want to adhere to their duty, so they would pay people to do it for them. That eventually evolved to police departments, and basically passing taxes to take money from local citizens to pay police to do the duty that was ours, the people's responsibilities. In 1903, when you took away our organized, well-regulated militia and gave it to the standing army, which the founder certainly preached against. Supposedly, armies are only supposed to be raised and monies raised for 2 years. So why do we have a standing army? There was no standing army until, World War I, and then of course it just stuck around. And the people in the States never really objected to the suppression of the state militia. Were the states infiltrated by bad people as well? Well, of course. I mean, we see the result of this infiltration today with crummy governors like Greg Abbott in Austin. And, we'll get into him later as well. But my focus is I actually, I've got the Landholdt for Governor campaign, but I also helped begun the We the People for President, because I wanted to start educating. I'm kind of out of the education mode. I've been involved in this thing since about 1990, the mid 80s. I got a late start in life because my parents weren't really politically active. I mean, they voted Republican, but they really didn't understand, what the heck was going on. And I wasn't taught, what was going on. I was too interested in sports growing up. So I'm kind of out of the education mode, but we got a nice website, wethepeopleforpresident.org, that is still, developing, and as funds allow will, be, I think, a pretty exciting website. I'm trying to find 5% of people in Texas or America who understand what the well-regulated militia is for, and are willing to or ready to, take up arms, legal, constitutionally militia arms to fight the money powers and the rogue public officials in Austin and state capitals. I actually have a sort of a standing call to arms. I started a We the People. It's actually called the Washington Tea Party. My acting campaign manager, Brad Fassbender, he had a Washington County Tea Party site page on Facebook, and he wasn't using it, so he gave it to me. But Facebook, for some reason, won't allow me to change it to We the People President, but I was able to change it to Washington Tea Party and then WTPP. So maybe Facebook, if they don't eventually boot me off, I'll eventually be able to change that. But we finally had funds to come up with Washington or wethepeopleforpresident.org website. So that's what I direct people to for more information and to kind of get an idea or to join our force, and hopefully we'll grow enough to make a difference, particularly in Texas. I'm looking for a safe haven, particularly for Christians, because we're being attacked all the time. And I'm tired of Christians being wimps and just continue to take it without taking up arms and fighting back, because these people really only understand at this point in time. I think they only understand force, not, and you could call that violence if you want, but hey, I call it self-defense.
Sure. Well, that makes total sense. And so as you look at this candidacy for governor, third parties have always had a real uphill struggle in the two-party system. You've had for the last 100+ years, you've had Republicans and you've had Democrats, and anything third party, they always call fringe or something like that. And then you look at what Ross Perot did whenever he ran for president, and could be argued that, oh, well, he stole votes from the Republicans, things like that. Do you feel like this time around there are enough people out there that are saying, hey, we're kind of sick of what's going on, and there might actually be a reason for a third party that can get some traction in there and have a fighting chance, so to speak, to get the candidacy in the bag?
Well, I think there's definitely enough discontent out there regarding present American society. And I think people are certainly sick and tired. I mean, we look at the statistics show that there's more non-voting Americans of voting age than there are voting. So, you know, supposedly the last two elections, and I've been big into vote fraud, exposing computer vote fraud, not the what I call voter fraud. There's a big difference between voter fraud, you know, the dead people voting and what have you, or multiple people voting multiple times, as opposed to the computer vote fraud, which is basically 3 companies control the vote count in America. I don't know if you're familiar with the Collier brothers, Jim and Kenneth Collier. They wrote a book, Vote Scam, The Stealing of America. And that was back in the 90s. And because they were running in the 70s down in the Miami-Dade County, Florida area. And they uncovered, you know, basically once computers came into the picture in the 70s, that's when they started to control the vote count even more than through voter fraud. So I've been doing this with Jim Condit, a colleague up in Ohio, since 1990. And so people have become so frustrated with the whole duopoly, the Republicans and Democrats, that they don't even vote anymore. Well, supposedly the last 2016, I guess, you know, somewhere around 70 million voted for Trump and 70 million voted for Hillary. And then this year, or 2020, supposedly, you know, 74 million, give or take, you know, voted for Biden, and closer, you know, about the same number. So supposedly, what, 20 to 140 million Americans are supposedly voting for Republicans or Democrats, which, you know, if the census is correct regarding 330 million Americans, there's still, you know, I'd say 150 million. Yeah, of course, I'm not counting children, but there's still a lot of non-voters. And one of the things I'll be bringing out in my candidacy is that the enemy is the Republicans and the Democratic Party. And so we got to educate, you know, I can't, you know, I look at the non-libertarian folks who say, well, you can't win, or, you know, we're going to vote for lesser evil. That's why I'm targeting Christians, to start acting like Christians. Stop voting for evil. I mean, I stopped voting after Reagan. I could see that the game was rigged. And of course, you know, Reagan was no constitutionalist either. It's going to be a huge educational effort. But as I tell people, I'm going after non-voters. You know, I think there's enough non-voters in Texas to sway people, particularly with the issue of secession. We got to get away from Washington, D.C. I mean, Greg Abbott's, you know, he lies. I think he lies a lot when he promotes, or at least starts talking about secession or an independent Texas. That's just to get more votes, or to keep the sheeple in line and voting Republican. But with this his destruction of the economy in Texas with the lockdowns and what happened last year. I think his time's up. Now, I don't think the Democrats can really present a candidate, supposedly Beto O'Rourke, the fake Hispanic ex-congressman from the El Paso area. Yeah, if the Democrats want to throw him up there, whatever. They say Abbott, I guess, is going to run again. But he's, after CPAC, I heard that CPAC, again, more fake conservatives, it's really just a shill group for the Republican Party. That Greg Abbott garnered a 0% vote in their straw poll for the presidency in 2024. And it was like a day later that he announced the opening up of Texas. Businesses could now go to 100% capacity. And then a week later, March 10th, we weren't going to be required to wear masks anymore. Well, the damage has already been done, Greg, and I'm going to do what I can to. Even if they elect a Democrat in 2024, I think I'm going to be able to create a big enough libertarian movement, and I use libertarian with a small L as opposed to a capital L. That we're going to be a force in the future.
Now, Nick, with traditionally the way the main two parties actually, I guess, quash independents or libertarians is that they adopt some of the more popular platform points and adopt it into their party to make, who would be voting for a libertarian or an independent, get them to vote for either, Republican or Democrat, which is why it's very difficult for a third party to ever kind of rise up with much power because they just steal the points, never follow through on them. Do you think it is possible, within Texas to create either enough of a noise that the things you are passionate about actually get adopted by the Republican Party in Texas, or that you can, I don't know, maybe get enough influence to actually change things? Because, I know we have this bipartisan kind of thing in Texas, but, Texans at the end of the day, even if we did have some idiot like Beto, and I can't stand that guy, I don't say that about many people, on this podcast, but that guy's a lunatic. Most Texans are not going to follow stuff they don't believe in, regardless of who's in power. Texas is a state where you're going to get the quickest uprising, against rule. If somebody like, Beto ever got in, not many Texans are going to follow what he says, so knowing that you probably can't win as a libertarian, is your main goal to try and influence and get, the Republican Party to take seriously some of the issues you're putting forward?
I'm going to be attacking the Republican Party, whether we get the movement, it gets large enough to influence. I think there's actually a small movement within the Libertarian Party of Texas for a secession type of movement. They had a meeting in 2017 or so that I attended in San Antonio, which is my hometown. And basically, the goal was to get the conservatives from the Republican Party to come over to the Libertarian Party. So, because I just feel that the grassroots, the conservative grassroots within the Republican Party just will never have the numbers to take back the party. It's embarrassing to say that Texas does not have constitutional carry. And we can point to the Republican Party as being part of that embarrassment. And it looks like, as we know, the Texas legislature meets every odd year. Thank heavens they don't meet every year. And constitutional carry is yet to pass. I mean, this is, like I say, it's embarrassing. And so I'm going to be pointing out that the fact that the Republicans are anti-gun. I mean, and we know that the Democrats are. So, you know, somebody like Beto, I mean, he just, when he ran for Senate against, I called Ted Cruz, Canadian Ted Cruz. You know, he said, we're going to take your guns. So we know that Beto is anti-gun. We just have to convince the grassroots conservatives within the Republican Party that they're barking up a tree that's, you know, just not going to go anywhere. So they need to either become independent voters or libertarian or whatever. And it's going to be a very interesting. It's going to be very confrontational, controversial, but getting to your point about the Republican Party stealing some issues within the Libertarian Party. I was a Texas national delegate for the Texas State Party in Orlando for the Libertarian Party National Convention in Orlando 2016. They passed that resolution about taxation as theft. And whatever happened to it? It went nowhere. The Libertarian Party has failed to capitalize on the whole taxation, the whole IRS issue. So not only will I be leading with the secessionist issue, but I'll be leading with the fact that the majority of Texians do not owe income taxes. I stopped filing in 96 was the last year I filed. And, you know, yeah, the IRS has gotten wind of it, and I now have actually a petition in front of the U.S. Tax Court, which has, you know, been about 3 years running. And so no decision's been made yet. But we need to unite that the total taxation theft, anti-IRS movement needs to be united, and sheriffs need to be told that, you know, the IRS is illegally, fraudulently collecting monies from Texians. And of course, Greg Abbott and the Republican Party is never going to say that. And so if they do, then that would be great. I don't know if we can influence that kind of decision. I don't think he's ever going to come out in favor of secession. You know, like I say, he talks about Texas independence it's on some of his stump speeches. But, you know, to force the issue, I think is going to require, you know, an anti-Republican, anti-Democrat type of movement, plus the fact that I don't think he would ever, the governor of Texas has the power to revitalize the Texas State Militia. Texas State Guard and those kind of things, those are contract type issues. That is not true state militia. So as governor, I would immediately reconstitute the Texas State Militia, which means we could clean up the courts, we clean up the abortuary, the murder babies. We could become economically free again from the money powers. But we're going to need militia, because I don't think the money powers are going to, just walk away on their own volition and give up on Texas, because, we got oil, we got gold. And I'm not a fan of oil. I'm a fan of industrial hemp. And I'm wanting to make that the new cash crop of Texas.
The hemp question, that's actually interesting, and that was a segue we didn't even plan. So, hemp used to be one of those cash crops for the the nation, and of course there's all kinds of industrial uses of hemp. Most people, when they hear that whole hemp deal, it's always about marijuana and smoking marijuana and all that, which, you know, we could get into the benefits and the detractions from that. But it's that kind of part of your party platform to say, hey, you know, let's move more towards doing something like that as a, I'll use the term, renewable source of energy.
Yes, it's going to be way up there. I mean, you know, the marijuana fact. I mean, I'm for decriminalizing drugs. I just think it's been used to control us. I mean, not every sin has to be against the law. You know, if sin isn't punished in this time, you know, it'll be punished in the hereafter. So yeah, industrial hemp, you know, to me, from what I've read and what I understand, basically the Rockefellers and the Hearst people, they wanted hemp to be, you know, outlawed or illegal because it was going to, you know, botch their plans for the whole oil in the paper industry. We don't need to be, you know, killing trees. You might say I'm not a big tree hugger, but you know, hemp is just an amazing plant. And when people see the benefit, I think the canard about, you know, marijuana being a gateway drug and all that kind of crap, I just don't buy it. I think it's again, the money powers and the media that's owned and controlled by the money powers is using that to keep this amazing plant suppressed. And I mean, supposedly Henry Ford made a car out of hemp. So, you know, that's another, of course, industry, though, the automaking industry. You shouldn't be using gasoline. I mean, electric and hemp, those kind of things can easily get you a lot more mileage than the gasoline. And of course, the prices, I hear the pricing is supposedly in Texas is supposed to head up to $4 a gallon. I mean, it's about $2.77 here in Midland, Odessa area. I don't know where it is in East Texas, but it's just, you know, that's all manipulated. A lot of it is taxes. And again, you know, taxation is theft. So I'm going to be talking about taxation is theft. I'm going to be talking about replacing oil as with industrial hemp. And in fact, I think I'm not that keen of a gold guy either. To me, that's manipulated as well. If we can use a commodity-based type currency, I don't have all the particulars ready to talk about, but I'm going to, you know, as hopefully people will see this interview and contact us through our website, and we'll get, you know, some people on board. I'm not, you know, look at this face. Do I look like a governor to you? The other.
Now you're being too hard on yourself, man. Don't be doing that.
The only reason I'm doing this is because no one else is willing to publicly talk about armed resistance against the powers that be. And why is that?
Well, we actually had Daniel Miller, who's a big propagator of succession,
Right,
Texas on our show maybe about 10 episodes ago. And, you know, he brought up that, you know, succession isn't actually as difficult as it's made out. You know, a lot of powers that be, you know, try and say that it's almost impossible. And the reason they say that is because they want people to kind of, you know, not look it up and not see that it's actually a realistic option. But, you know, he educated us and told us that, you know, it's really, you know, so as long as it gets some wind in its sails, it is something that can realistically happen. And, you know, we're glad we had him on because, you know, I think Texas is the greatest country in the world. And, you know, I tell all my, you know, family back in Europe, yeah, I live in Texas. I don't live in the United States of America. I live in Texas.
Right.
But, you know, when you were talking about hemp, you know, the big problem with hemp is like any natural product, whether it be like vitamins or anything, you know, it can't be exploited for money by the people who currently control the system. Then, you know, they spend money trying to demonize it. And yeah, I think there's an awakening in that people are seeing, you know, maybe 20, 30 years ago, people who were against marijuana are now coming around to saying, look, it does have medical benefits. It's ridiculous banning a drug which almost has no instances of fatalities and anything else, unlike alcohol. I mean, crap, you can go buy a full bottle of vodka for $10, crash a car, kill somebody, kill yourself, kill whoever, go out, stab somebody because you're mad, because you're drunk or whatever. Yet marijuana, here we are still 2021, and most of the states in the country, it's illegal. You know, THC is an illegal, you know, byproduct to put in, you know, kind of like medical products and stuff. And yet it's been proven so many times that, you know, the effects of, you know, marijuana on, you know, cancer and on various, you know, inflammation related diseases in the body, it's one of the most effective things you can have. Yet again, it's those people with the money, big pharma especially, who spend so much money defeating and demonizing, you know, marijuana. And Texas is a shock to me in terms of, for as much as the Republican Party preach against big government interference, that they still really, even here in Texas, are not propagating a movement towards, you know, decriminalizing, you know, hemp and, you know, marijuana and stuff. I mean, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of uses for hemp. I mean, again, you talk about, you know, Henry T. Ford building the car and stuff, but, you know, the rate at which hemp grows, I mean, you know, you talked about trees. I mean, it grows so quickly. I mean, you can cut down hemp and it will regrow within like about 2 or 3 months to the size it was before. It's such a renewable product, you know, and it can be used for so many different things. And yet the hurdles, you know, you have to go through, and you know, instant taxation and everything else they put on it, they try and stop, you know, it being almost like a byproduct for anything. Now, how can we get, you know, the rhinos as such to actually in Texas start to take this seriously? Because most people in Texas, you know, outside of your holy rollers who kind of concentrate on the wrong thing, I guess, how are we going to convince people that, look, we need to push hard for decriminalization in the state of Texas?
Well, I think it's kind of a two-step process. It's the education, as you mentioned, proving to people the facts that, you know, the benefits of, you know, marijuana as far as the medical thing. And maybe it's a situation where, you know, they pass the medical thing, you know, now or this session. I'm not following it that closely, but, you know, maybe there's an opportunity that they, you know, free it up a little bit more in the medical. And then on the, you know, 2 years down the road, the proof is there that it is, you know, we have been wrong. I mean, to me, it's kind of not only proving that it's beneficial, but proving as why it was suppressed. You know, the people behind the suppression of it, the control that the drug wars, you know, the cartels, and that's, I mean, where militia, state militia come into play again, would be in securing the borders, not only against illegal immigration, but against these drug cartels, who, you know, are violating not only property rights, but, you know, human rights by, you know, killing people. And I estimate the Texas militia would number somewhere around 10 million, and that's plenty of people to put on a rotational watch down on the border. There's supposedly a bill that someone's introduced in this session to use state funds to continue Trump's building of the wall. I had to laugh. I said, first of all, I don't think that wall is meant to keep people out. I think it's meant to keep us in. But secondarily, that wall has benefited companies in Israel, which I think is payback by Trump for all the loans that he got from the New York bankers, to become a real estate baron. But be that as it may, it's an educational issue as far as the hemp and the medical benefits. And it's just, we have to overcome decades of this false news, this fake news that, marijuana or hemp is bad. I think we have to overcome the own controlled mainstream media. And how do we do that? Media bypass. How do we do that? Well, Brad and I are looking at creating a sort of a statewide citizens reporter type of movement to where they are reporting the news that the mainstream media is either suppressing or not even reporting on. And Texians are smart enough, and particularly I think the non-Republican, non-Democrat types are smart enough to see what's happening. I mean, we see just the fact that the legislature is having to, pass pro or at least lift some of the restrictions on hemp. We just have to do it faster because I think we're running out of time.
Now, do you feel, Nick, that, I mean, we all know that a few people control so many things, especially in terms of the banks, and obviously money talks in every arena of politics. You have people going into politics, they go on the base salary, when they get in the House, and all of a sudden, just a few years later, they're multi-millionaires based upon, a salary which really shouldn't even get you to being half of a millionaire within 5 years. So everybody's taking this money from lobbyists, and it's more, I guess, the silent infiltration through nefarious money groups that really drive policy for both parties. And is there a way really ever to kind of stop that? Because, I mean, it really is nefarious, it's insidious. The money pushes the policy. That's always been, the way, since the Federal Reserve was created. I mean, I get tired of having to explain to people, Federal Reserve is about as government as FedEx. The federal thing, it's just a title to make people think it's about, government. Well, it's not. It's a private entity. And, people don't generally know. I don't care how much they claim to do research. They don't really know how money gets into politics. They don't know the groups, who really kind of influence everything, just from the laws, the interpretation of the laws, and how do we even begin to kind of like stop that? I mean, I know education is one thing, but most people, if it's not affecting them directly, don't seem to care enough to really raise their voice about, we shouldn't have a few shadowy people, controlling the entire country through their checkbook.
Well, you need to have an honest guy get in. I mean, supposedly Tom Cotton is a senator. He was kind of a, I guess, I don't know if he was a Tea Party, backed type of Senate, but he's already, compromised. And maybe a lot of these, sex scandals and the pedophile scandals, that's how they do get to a lot of these people. You got to get something on them. I had envisioned, if I ever got into Congress, and I could certainly do the same thing as governor, of having a reality TV show and have cameras follow me around and show Texians or show Americans just how corrupt Washington, D.C. or Austin is. I mean, I think I would probably be avoided a lot. Maybe I wouldn't get too many people talking to me because there's too much smoke and mirrors and behind the scenes shenanigans going on that we never see what the truth is in politics. So we have to open up ourselves to reality, and not the fake suit and tie coat types that we see in Austin with Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, some of the high ups within the state legislature. In fact, my state representative, Brooks Landgraft, he was elected to let's see, in 2016. So he's on his, I think it was the previous state rep decided not to seek re-election. So Brooks Landgraf in 2016 had approached or was approached by conservatives within the Republican Party and was asked to, I guess, run. He got their support, and then he betrayed them by endorsing the current House Speaker, and I can't even remember that guy's name because he's not House Speaker anymore. But they were wanting to a state rep who was going to go for a conservative for House Speaker. And so he didn't do it. So, was he bought? Or was he offered something by that House Speaker or the rhinos in Austin? I don't know, but he's on his third thing. And some people say I should run, for something, smaller than governor, like a state rep or a city council. And I guess I could. The main reason I ran for Congress in 2016 was to take advantage of a relatively unknown law called the Reasonable Access Law, which was, in short, it says any FCC licensed station in the country must take the ads of a federal candidate. So I was hoping to raise funds in order to expose a lot of corruption by using ads on, all the conservative talk show hosts, Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, those kind of guys. I didn't get that money, but that law still exists. And so it can be used by, in fact, Jim Conant, who I mentioned is the colleague I worked with on vote fraud. He uses that every 2 years. He runs for Congress up in Ohio, and he uses it to expose the powers that be. I would use it to not only do that, but also to expose the whole IRS scam, because I think even people who would vote against me, are they that stupid that they would vote against me, even though with somebody like me in office, they wouldn't be having to pay income taxes anymore? Who knows?
Right. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think anybody likes paying income taxes.
Right.
And, we're in income tax season right now. A lot of people, they're running to H&R Block or one of those places to get their income taxes done, and nobody likes writing that check. A lot of people like what they call a refund, right? Which isn't really a refund. I mean, I think everybody knows that it's their money, and yeah, I guess technically it is a refund, but it's still your money that you're getting back. So kind of digging into some of what you were saying there, what are these other powers that be? What do you see as those powers that be that maybe nobody else is really seeing right now, and how this really works?
Well, I cut my teeth. on this it was probably 1995, I suppose, when I first started to learn about the whole income tax scam. And this book here, the Irwin Schiff's, I don't know if you're familiar with Irwin Schiff, but he wrote the Federal Mafia, and he wrote many other books, and he ended up dying in jail actually within the last few years, unfortunately. He was made an example of. A lot has changed with the laws since the 90s, but they like they meaning the powers that be, the international bankers, the people behind the scenes. They like to show high-profile income tax tax protesters like Wesley Snipes. They like to present those things as examples so that people continue to have fear against this IRS. Well, the only way the IRS continues to collect money is because of county sheriffs and governors who don't know the law and who will refuse to adhere to it or prevent these people from coming in and seizing property or arresting people, depending on whether it's a criminal case or a civil case. That's what we need to educate the county sheriffs on. I've got a terrible county sheriff. He almost sent an army against a local bar owner last year during the COVID stuff, when the bar owner said that she was going to reopen her bar. And so you've got, some good sheriffs out there and constitutional type sheriffs who say that they are not going to obey these, lockdown rules or masks rules or what have you. And the media probably doesn't, shows, a handful. Maybe there are a lot more county sheriffs who do that we are not aware of. That's what our citizen reporting with We the People for President would try to do, is find out how many more sheriffs in Texas are actually pro-Constitution than what we are led to believe. But the whole IRS thing, it just continues to grow, and basically IRS income taxes, federal income taxes, are paid paying off the interest, the usury from the Federal Reserve. They're not paying off, roads or highway improvements, that kind of thing. It's paying usury to the powers that be, and usury, as Christians know, is condemned by the Bible many times.
Yeah, so going along with that, given this, that we've tried to give you your platform, right, and we want you to be able to say whatever that you want to impart. If you had three things, and I won't limit you to three, but I'd like you to at least have three things that you would just jump out there and say, hey, these are things that I want everybody to know. This is why I'm running for governor. And these are the things that people need to know before they go to that polling station. What would those three things be?
Well, we're Texas independence, but without the state militia, that's not going to happen. So I'll be revitalizing the state militia in order to bring about Texas independence. And between Texas independence and the militia, you won't be paying income tax, federal income taxes. And of course, Texas does not have a state income tax. So how much more money is that going to put into your pocket when your employers should be pro Landholdt for governor, because they will stop being unpaid tax collectors for the IRS, which is what they are now. And the other thing is, we got to clean up the vote. I mentioned the vote fraud issue. We're going to go back to paper ballots counted at the precinct before, in full view of the public, before they leave the precinct.
Now that makes total sense, and I get that. So if you had a opportunity to put somebody in your office, okay, we're going to speculate now. You win the governor of Texas, right? And now we've seceded from the union, and now to use a quote from a good friend of mine, you now become the supreme benevolent dictator of Texas, which I'm not saying you're going to do that, but I have to throw that out there because that's what he's always said he would like to be and have Texas independent, right? What would you like to share with some of the people sitting in that office to say, hey, now we're here, let me share some of the other problems that we've got and what I'm going to do to fix those problems?
Well, I'm going to surround myself with people who are smarter than I am, but who also understand that the whole money issue, the whole taxation is theft issue, the economic freedom of having advanced technology in cars, vehicles, those kind of things. We're going to show pretty quickly how economically free Texas not only could be, but will be sort of the prototype country for the other states in the former union that Texas used to be in. Because I think once, whether it's Texit or Cal-Exit, one of these countries goes first, I think the domino effect is going to kick in pretty quickly. People are sick and tired of the whole COVID scam. We can't get the truth out there. That's what Citizens Reporter can do. We're going to have to do Zoom broadcasts like this to get the truth out there. We got to find out who the constitutional sheriffs are in Texas. I just want to show Texians that they are the people in charge, not the benevolent dictator in Austin. I'm your friend. I'm going to have that reality TV show that will keep me honest.
Well, Nick, sorry to interrupt you there, bud. Politics as such in any what we call democracy is a bit of an illusion because you can only choose from the options presented in front of you. And then I think, Bernie Sanders found that out, when he was running, for the candidate, and the DNC, screwed him, stabbed him in the back twice, which to me wasn't a bad thing because it'd be a nightmare if he was in charge of the country. But the point is, it's like going to a restaurant and say, you're saying to your wife or saying to your kids, you can eat anything you want, but you get the menu and the only options on there are salad or a shrimp. Okay. And so really you're just choosing from what's presented in front of you. So there is no such thing in politics as true democracy. Okay. You can only ever choose from people who are placed in front of you, and they always make sure that the people placed in front of you are always fulfilling, the wishes of those people who provided the money and want to keep making that money. So how do you really break that system? Because I can't see a time where people literally, like, the Rothschilds or whoever, have, these, well, not just billions, maybe trillions of dollars worldwide. How do you break that system? Because to me, it seems impossible when pretty much everybody, Republican or Democrat, can be bought and paid for overnight, to go against their own beliefs, their own passions. And if they resist, they just get removed one way or another. I mean, is there really genuinely any way to fix politics?
I think the only way personally is through the power of God. For Christians, and particularly Christian libertarians, we need to get back to God. If you're somebody who believes in good and evil, then God is good and Satan is the evil, mean, we've seen evil. Whether you think it's Satan or the money powers or whoever, you have an idea naturally of what bad is, evil. So how do we get to the opposite? Well, for me, it's getting back to God and the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. I want to get rid of political parties so that it's just a, kind of an individual, what does the man stand for? We have a Constitution. You're either supposed to be for the Constitution or you're not. You either enforce the Constitution or you don't. So if somebody's not enforcing the Constitution, do we have to go through a party to find somebody, or do we just look for the individuals out there? I mean, to run as an independent, I found out you have to have 84,000 registered voters sign a petition to get on the ballot. The Democrats and the Republicans have made it so difficult for third parties that it is ridiculous. So this is why the people have to take back power, and they have to, unfortunately, they have to go vote for somebody who understands how to give them back that power. And that's somebody, that's me, who's going to bring back the Texas state militia so that the people of Texas have power again, not the legislatures in Austin.
Yeah. So I got a couple more questions for you. So Nick, I'm sure you probably haven't listened to our podcast that much, but the Wolf likes to have a segment on our podcast called Stump the Shepherd. And so we didn't tell you we were going to ask you this, but since we're talking about political parties, this came to mind. So this is going to be Stump Nick. I'm just going to ask you one question, and I think you're going to get the answer correct. Who was the only president of the United States that did not have a political party?
I'd have to say George Washington.
There you go. See, I knew you would get it. Yeah, he actually, and I thought of that because you were sitting there and you were talking about how, we've had this two-party system forever. Yeah, George Washington, that is true. He is the only president that was not a member of a political party. So, well done. Just so you know, Nick, you actually have done so much better at the Stump the Whomever than I ever do, because I usually always get the questions wrong. So, I'm going to ask you one last question, and then after that, I'm just going to give you a kind of a soliloquy time to say some other things that maybe we haven't hit. But just kind of a random question here. What's your take on QAnon? Is that real? Have you followed any of the QAnon stuff? Do you think there's some legitimacy there?
No, I don't. I have followed it a little bit. I think it's more controlled opposition, what I call FO, false opposition. There's a quote that Vladimir Lenin said that in order to control the opposition, we have to create it ourselves. And that's what they've done. QAnon, I'm not even sure. I don't believe. I've read enough from Henry Makow. I don't know if you've are familiar with Henry, but that Edward Snowden is controlled opposition. So is Julian Assange. These guys, we think they're persecuted, but that's just what's presented to us. So we think they're good guys because they're supposedly, reveal a few things to us. Well, none of these people, Julian, Edward, or Q, they never talk about what is necessary for a free state. And it's the first 13 words of this is a fantastic book. This is a book by Dr. Edwin Vieira, 13 words. and it's one of the best books. It's very short. I mean, you can see it's not very thick, but it's about constitutional militia. And this other book of his, Three Rights, is also a fantastic book. But basically, I agree with Dr. Vieira. The most important words in the Constitution are the first 13 words of the Second Amendment, which the NRA, the Gun Owners of America, National Association of Gun Rights, Texas Gun Rights Association, none of these gun lobby groups ever talk about militia. All they talk about is the right to keep and bear arms. Well, I don't need an amendment to tell me that I have a right to defend myself. But why aren't you educating Americans on the well-regulated militia, which is necessary to the security of a free state? Is that because your false opposition as well? So I believe QAnon is another, distraction. There's a lot of distractions out there. The media is just full of soap opera crap that is distracting away from the militia aspect.
Yeah, totally get you. So last thing before we close, I'm going to pretend like, and the wolf makes fun of me because he says I have this fake broadcast voice. So I'm going to be a fake broadcaster right now, and I'm going to turn the stage over to you, and I'm going to let you cover anything that we missed as we close. So this is your opportunity to go into anything we might have missed before we close. So Nick, the stage is yours.
Well, I think we've covered a lot. I didn't talk about my talk radio show. You mentioned talk radio. I run it on Fridays. It's a weekly. I've been doing it a little over 4 years now. It's called Christian Revolt, Long Overdue. And you can go to our We the People for President.org website to get the details. I'm on Facebook. At least right now I'm in Facebook jail. So I criticize Ben Shapiro for bilking ignorant Christians, and apparently that's hate speech. So for about 3 more weeks, I can't post or comment. But you can go to my Facebook page, Nicholas Landholdt, and that's spelled Landholdt. It's got a picture of Christ the King. People think that I'm trying to hide behind that. They could go to my Landholdt for Congress page to see my ugly mug. I got an interview from American Free Press, the old Spotlight, that has my picture on it. I'm not trying to hide myself. I'm just trying to show that this is all for Christ the King. I love doing the show. It doesn't take too much to do. As I say, we broadcast live from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern, 3 to 4 Central here in Texas. And it rebroadcasts Friday night and Monday mornings on the Liberty Works radio network. But, I'm trying to conduct media bypass. I'm trying to get the truth out there and seeing, who is willing to. Men have become so emasculated. It's pathetic. It's embarrassing. I'm 65, so I consider myself a dead man walking. I've lived my life. I'm just trying to make up, I guess, for the first 30 years of not doing anything for Christ the King and for in politics, and getting the word out there to libertarians and people who just want to, basically be left alone. I think that's what most people want to be left alone is by government. But, that's not possible these days. As I say, I think we're in a police state. It's becoming more overt by the day. And, who knows what kind of event, you had 9/11, you got the COVID, You got, a lot of false flags out there. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, they're all started basically by false flags. So we, the people, we were the ones, we're supposed to be in charge, constitutionally speaking. So why aren't we in charge? My candidacy is going to bring that out. And I think Texas should be leading the way. That stupid Greg Abbott talks about Texas values. Well, I think Texas values should be Christ the King's values. And hopefully we'll get enough support to get this movement going, and we can get back to where people are left alone to do, what they want to do with families.
So lastly, Nick, actually, I wanted to ask, do you have much contact or attempted contact with like Greg Abbott or Ted Cruz to try and get your points? Or, is that kind of like battering your head against the wall to try and actually influence politics in Texas?
Well, it's probably battering my head if I tried. What I have done is I have a colleague, constitutional colleague. He's a militia scholar up in the Northeast. His name's Daniel Vincent McGonigal III, and he actually had his Facebook pages taken down within the last year, and they dealt with constitutional militia. So Facebook is trying to hide the whole constitutional militia issue. They took down a couple of other pages dealing again with constitutional militia. This is something that these people do not want the average American citizen to know about, because it's still possible, God willing, to unite and to get behind a movement for a constitutional militia. But this friend, Daniel, he had written a paper, a white paper, you might say, for the governor of Maine a few years ago, showing how that particular governor in Maine could revitalize the Maine state militia. And he did some preliminary research in Texas and found out, and that's why I can say that the Texas governor has the same power. We do not need to go through the state legislature in Austin to revitalize the state militia. The governor of Texas has the power to do it by himself. So I was going to take this white paper that Daniel had written, or actually I was waiting for Daniel to give it to me, and I wanted to take it directly to Austin and have, whether I could deliver it in front of the press to Greg Abbott himself, or at least get the office of the governor of Texas to stamp that they had received it. But Daniel never got it to me, and I'm not sure what happened. But and I may still try to do that. But Ted Cuban Canadian Cruz, John Cornyn, he's also no good. I guess for appearances, I could and do it for the record. I guess I could do something. But I think they need to have it presented to where they have to respond, and maybe Brad and myself can come up with some type of a press release or something that calls out Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, Ted Cruz, John Cornyn, and almost forcing them. I mean, obviously Ted Cruz had to respond to his Cancun fiasco. That was during the Arctic blast. I mean, I'm also a firm believer that geoengineering had a lot to do with that unseasonably cold weather we had, which affected me a lot, as well as millions of other Texians. So
yeah, we called it our Texas snowmageddon. I mean, that was kind of ridiculous. I hadn't seen that much snow in a long time.
That's a good one.
I'm kind of curious though. The Maine militia, do they use lobsters as weapons? I mean, isn't that basically the only thing Maine is known for, is just lobsters? So they're out there just like and trying to attack people with lobsters.
Well, the good thing about state militias is they actually can have the same weaponry as the military. That's what the militia is for holding off the bad guys, the tyrants, the rogue politicians. Lobsters, yeah, maybe they could come in handy when surreptitiously, or in guerrilla warfare anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you can get some angry lobsters out there. So, well, Nick, we certainly appreciate you joining us on this episode of The Wolf and the Shepherd. And just one last time, give everybody the best way to get a hold of you, get a hold of your campaign, all that good stuff before we close.
Well, before I do that, do I get a chance to stump you guys?
Oh, absolutely. We're especially me, because I can pretty much guarantee you I'm going to get whatever you ask me absolutely wrong.
I already have Google open right now, so this better be good.
What was the official first third party in America?
I know the answer to that. It's the Anti-Masonic Party.
You got it. Good for you. I thought about resurrecting that.
Oh, what? So why is that? Just out of curiosity.
Why is that? Because Judeo-Masonry is the main people that we'll be targeting. Landholdt for governor campaign will be targeting. A lot of people think Freemasons are just, the nice guys, the Shriners, hospitals, the circuses, and what have you. But Freemasonry wants to destroy the church and Christendom. So another big education effort. But I am quite surprised, but glad that you knew that.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, how are the Freemasons going to take care of that? How are they trying to destroy Christianity?
Well, their branch. Of course, there's different branches of Freemasonry, but if you look at books like Behind the Lodge Door, Jim Shaw's got a book. I actually sell a book myself, Freemasonry Condemned by Its Own Sources. Short little book. It shows that their great architect is not Christian. I mean, they don't care what God that you worship. They want you to believe that they're Christian. And that's why the church, the Catholic Church, has certainly condemned Freemasonry for over 100 years. Leo XIII wrote an encyclical called Humanum Genus, which talks about Freemasonry and what their plans are. But Freemasonry is actually what Michael Hoffman has said is Judaism for Gentiles. So it's a complicated subject. Maybe we'll talk, have me back on to discuss that further. But we'll be talking about that on my website. And so, yes, best way to contact me probably is through our website, wethepeopleforpresident.org. I hope to have a Landholdt for governor website. Again, we need funds. This is a totally grassroots effort. This is not. It's not going to be controlled by the left like the Occupy movement was. It's not going to be controlled by the right like the yellow vests movement was. This is a Christian movement, which is and you know, we work with non-Christians. We just need to target the right people and have the right goal, liberty.
Gotcha. Well, hey, Nick, glad you could join us today. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Wolf and the Shepherd. Please look Nick up online, and you can reach out to him and maybe get some more questions answered in case you have any other questions. And we will catch you guys on the next one.
Thank you, Nick.